the federal courtroom fell into a stunned silence as Judge Edith Jones, the legendary Fifth Circuit conservative icon, locked eyes with Representative Jasmine Crockett. For 35 years, Jones had crushed every argument in her path with razor-sharp logic and unyielding principle, earning her a reputation as one of the most formidable judges in American history. But today, in a packed Dallas federal chamber filled with tense anticipation, she faced something different, a high-stakes 2025 abortion rights ethics showdown that would explode across social media within minutes, captivating millions and sparking heated debates nationwide. Representative Crockett, Jones began, her Texas drawl cutting like steel through the heavy air. Your proposed federal abortion mandate not only violates 50 years of established precedent, but also threatens the very foundation of judicial independence that has protected our constitutional democracy for generations. The room froze in place, with every eye locked on the two women at the center of the drama. Legal scholars scribbled furiously in their notebooks, activists held their breath, and live-stream viewers from across the country leaned closer to their screens, sensing that this was no ordinary hearing. What followed wasn't just a routine ruling or a fleeting exchange. It became the most shared, most discussed courtroom moment of 2025, a clip that would rack up tens of millions of views and redefine how Americans viewed judicial accountability. In under 3 minutes of intense back and forth, Crockett delivered a response so devastating and meticulously prepared, backed by a trove of leaked internal court documents that had been the subject of whispers in legal circles for months, that even Judge Jones' famously stern expression cracked under the pressure, revealing a rare glimpse of vulnerability from the bench. The evidence. Page 47, of a sealed Fifth Circuit memo proving conflicts of interest in abortion rulings, including undisclosed communications with anti-abortion lobbying groups and potential financial ties that could sway decisions on women's rights. This wasn't mere rhetoric. It was a bombshell that exposed cracks in the system and forced a reckoning. If you love seeing truth destroy power in real time, if you're passionate about moments where underdogs flip the script on entrenched authority, smash that subscribe button right now. These are the raw, unfiltered moments that change America, that inspire movements and hold the powerful to account. To truly appreciate the gravity of this confrontation, let's dive deeper into the two powerhouse figures at its heart. Judge Edith Jones is nothing short of a judicial legend, a towering presence in the conservative legal world. Appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit by President Ronald Reagan back in 1985, she has spent nearly 4 decades shaping the law in one of the most influential circuits in the nation, overseeing cases that affect millions across Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. With over 1,200 opinions authored or joined, Jones has reversed more lower court decisions than almost any living judge, earning accolades for her incisive intellect and steadfast commitment to originalism, interpreting the Constitution as its framers intended. At 76 years old, Jones remains as sharp as ever. Her dissents in landmark cases like Planned Parenthood v. Casey in 1992 still required reading in law schools across the country, where they're dissected for their rigorous analysis of states' rights and federal overreach. Born in Philadelphia but a Texan at heart, she graduated from Cornell University and the University of Texas School of Law, where she excelled in a male-dominated field. Her career highlights include clerking for Justice William Rehnquist and serving as Chief Judge of the Fifth Circuit, positions that cemented her as a mentor to countless young conservatives in the legal profession. Critics on the left often paint her as unyielding on issues like abortion and criminal justice, but admirers praise her for never wavering from principle, even in the face of public backlash. On the other side stands Representative Jasmine Crockett, a 43-year-old force of nature who has rapidly ascended as the loudest and most unapologetic progressive voice in Congress. A former public defender and civil rights attorney from Dallas, Crockett cut her teeth representing the underserved in Texas courtrooms, fighting against systemic biases that disproportionately affect communities of color. Elected to the House in 2022, she quickly made waves with her fiery speeches and no-holds-barred approach to advocacy, championing bills on voting rights, police reform, and now, reproductive justice. Her Reproductive Justice Act of 2025 aims to override draconian state bans post-Roe v. Wade, ensuring federal protections for abortion access nationwide. A bold move that has rallied progressives, but drawn fierce opposition from conservative judges like Jones, who see it as legislative overreach trampling on states' rights. Crockett's background as a black woman in Texas politics adds layers to her fight. She's spoken openly about personal experiences with inequality, using them to fuel her push for change. Her viral moments, like calling out hypocrisy in committee hearings, have amassed millions of views on social media, turning her into a symbol of resistance for a new generation of activists. But this clash with Jones wasn't just professional, it felt personal, pitting two Texas powerhouses against each other in a battle over the future of women's rights in America. The tensions leading up to this explosive moment had been simmering for 6 long months, building like a pressure cooker ready to blow. It all started with a series of leaked emails from within the Fifth Circuit, obtained by investigative journalists at ProPublica, showing clerks and judges coordinating behind the scenes with prominent anti-abortion groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom. These communications hinted at strategy sessions on how to uphold state bans, including discussions of potential financial incentives and undisclosed donations that could influence rulings. Crockett, as a member of the House Judiciary Committee, seized on the leaks, issuing subpoenas for the full records and demanding transparency in a series of fiery press conferences that dominated cable news cycles. Judge Jones, ever the defender of judicial sanctity, moved swiftly to quash the subpoenas, arguing in court filings that such probes were an unconstitutional intrusion on the judiciary's independence, potentially chilling free deliberation among judges. Legal experts weighed in from all sides. Liberal commentators like those on MSNBC hailed Crockett as a hero exposing corruption, while conservative outlets like Fox News decried it as a witch hunt designed to intimidate the bench. Bar associations issued statements calling for calm, but the public was hooked. Hashtags like Expose the Fifth trended on X, amassing over 10 million impressions in a single week. Today was D-Day, the hearing where Jones would rule on the subpoenas, with Crockett testifying in person to make her case. As Crockett approached the podium, the atmosphere was electric, with reporters jostling for angles and activists holding signs outside the courthouse demanding justice. Crockett's opening statement was a masterclass in controlled passion. "Your Honor, with all due respect, when judges accept luxury trips from litigants with stakes in cases, when clerks draft opinions influenced by dark money groups funneling millions into anti-abortion causes, we don't have precedent. We have corruption masquerading as law, and it's eroding trust in our courts at a time when women's lives are on the line." The gallery erupted in a low hum of agreement and dissent, with some audience members nodding vigorously while others shook their heads in disapproval. Jones, unflinching behind her bench, interrupted sharply. "Order. Congresswoman, you stand before this court accusing us of bias without foundation. Your bill is a blatant end run around the Supreme Court's overturn of Roe v. Wade, pure legislative overreach designed to impose federal will on sovereign states." The chamber murmured louder now, the tension palpable as Crockett stayed remarkably cool under the judge's glare, methodically pulling out her thick binder of documents, her hands steady despite the high stakes. Exhibit A, this memo from your chambers, dated March 2025. It shows Justice Department coordination with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on Dobbs follow-up cases, including strategy to block federal mandates. Page 47 admits potential undisclosed funding ties from groups like the Federalist Society, who have donated to judicial education programs attended by sitting judges. Jones' eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting prey, and she leaned forward over her bench, banging her gavel lightly to regain control, as whispers turned to audible gasps. "That document is sealed for a reason, Representative, admitting it would violate long-standing protocol and could compromise ongoing deliberations in sensitive cases." But Crockett didn't back down an inch, her voice rising with conviction. "Protocol, or protection for the powerful. The American people deserve transparency when fundamental rights like abortion access are on the line, especially in a post-Roe world where women in states like Texas are dying from lack of care. This isn't about politics, it's about justice for every woman facing bans without exceptions for rape, incest, or health risks." The room erupted in a cacophony of whispers and side conversations, with a few activists in the back starting to film discreetly on their phones, knowing this was gold for social media. Jones paused for a long moment, flipping through her own stack of notes with deliberate slowness, her face a mask of composure but her knuckles white on the gavel. "Your evidence is compelling in its presentation, but irrelevant to the motion at hand. The subpoenas are quashed, and the motion is denied. Crockett smiled faintly, a glint of triumph in her eyes as she leaned into the microphone. Denied, or delayed until the truth comes out, because if we appeal this ruling, this memo goes public through discovery, and the court's credibility crashes harder than in the Watergate scandal that brought down a president. Jones' face tightened visibly, the first real crack in her legendary armor, a subtle flinch that cameras caught and amplified online. She adjourned for a brief recess, but not before muttering under her breath, audible to those nearby, "We'll revisit this. Off the record, perhaps we can discuss a path forward." What happened next stunned everyone in attendance and beyond. During the break, away from the prying eyes of the main chamber but witnessed by a handful of clerks and reporters lingering nearby, Jones pulled Crockett into a side room for a private conversation. According to sources who overheard snippets, the judge admitted quietly, "You've got a valid point on transparency. The system isn't perfect, and leaks like this force us to confront it. Let's talk real reform, not just rhetoric." By evening, grainy cell phone clips of the adjournment hit TikTok and X, with Crockett shuts down Jones trending worldwide, amassing over 2 million views in hours and sparking memes, think pieces, and even late-night TV segments. Crockett's bill, previously stalled, gained 5 new co-sponsors overnight from moderate Republicans swayed by the evidence. This wasn't just a courtroom win for Crockett. It was a blueprint for holding judicial power accountable in an era of declining trust, showing how one bold move could ripple through the entire legal system. In the days that followed the hearing, legal experts from prestigious institutions like Harvard Law and Yale hailed Crockett's strategic maneuvering as masterful lawyering at its finest, comparing it to historic moments like Thurgood Marshall's arguments in Brown v. Board. Jones, in a rare post-hearing interview with a conservative legal podcast, conceded more than expected. "Passion like hers keeps us honest and reminds us that the bench isn't infallible. Transparency strengthens, not weakens our role." The memo at the heart of it all. It was unsealed 2 weeks later after Crockett's team filed an emergency appeal, revealing not just the page 47 admission, but a web of connections between judges and advocacy groups that led to congressional investigations. Crockett's Reproductive Justice Act passed out of committee with bipartisan support, a monumental step closer to becoming law, potentially restoring federal protections for abortion in a fractured post-Roe landscape. Lessons from the vault: evidence trumps everything, even decades of precedent. Humility from the bench, even if reluctant, priceless in rebuilding public faith. This clash didn't just expose flaws, it ignited a movement for judicial reform, with petitions circulating online demanding ethics codes for all federal judges. Stay tuned, next unlock Crockett versus Alito on those infamous flags, or perhaps a deep dive into her takedown of Ron DeSantis on voting rights. Thanks for watching Viral Clapback Vault. Drop a fire if justice prevailed today and tell us in the comments, what evidence would you drop in a courtroom battle? But the story doesn't end there. Let's expand on why this moment resonated so deeply across America. In a year marked by political division, with the 2024 election still fresh in minds and 2026 midterms looming, Crockett's poise under fire became a symbol of resilience for women and minorities fighting systemic barriers. Social media exploded with fan edits. Crockett's Exhibit A line set to dramatic music, Jones' pause memed as when facts hit the bench. Influencers from both sides weighed in, with progressive voices like AOC retweeting support, and even some conservatives admitting the need for ethics checks. Jones, for her part, didn't retreat into silence. In a follow-up opinion on a related case, she cited Crockett's evidence indirectly, noting recent disclosures highlight the imperative for voluntary transparency. Legal analysts called it a subtle shift, perhaps the first crack in conservative resistance to reform. Crockett, meanwhile, used the momentum to tour battleground states, rallying crowds with tales of the showdown. It's not about beating a judge, it's about beating injustice. The broader impact: abortion cases in the Fifth Circuit saw a 20% spike in recusals throughout 2025, according to data from SCOTUS blog and judicial watchdogs. Advocacy groups like Planned Parenthood reported a surge in donations, crediting the viral clip. Even the Supreme Court took notice, with Chief Justice Roberts issuing a memo on enhanced ethics guidelines, a quiet win traced back to that Dallas chamber. Vault verdict: when facts hit like a hammer, even the mightiest giants on the bench can fall or at least bend. This wasn't just a debate, it was democracy in action, proving one voice with evidence can echo through halls of power. If this extended dive into the drama fired you up even more, make sure to like, share widely and subscribe for deeper unlocks from the vault. We're just getting started on exposing the clapbacks that shape our world. Comment below, who's next on Crockett's list and what showdown do you want us to cover? And remember, in the viral Clapback vault, we don't just tell stories, we relive them, dissect them and show how they change everything. Stay empowered, stay informed and keep clapping back.